Julia.
Hi, my name is Karina.
I'm Chris.
I'm Andrea.
We are Nate's case manager, and we're going to first talk about Orem self-care deficit nursing theory and how this is important applying to Nate and applying it back to the theory.
So one thing we want to talk about is the ability to manage in-person affairs and him to manage his own ability to manage himself in a changing environment. So when he goes to college, it's important for him to be able to adapt to his environment, not only for himself, but for his own personal life as well, for his health and his health.
Another theory that I found about the self-care deficit nursing theory was getting the patient back to independence and getting them back to their baseline rather than as a nurse doing everything for them.
Right. In this case, Nate's responsible for his own health and illness, and he's going to have to be more self-reliant, and it's going to be important for him to maintain autonomy now that he's heading off to college, and be less reliant or almost completely unreliant on his grandmother and his mother.
For when we talk about how Nate falls on the continuum of the nursing patient system, we thought that he was partially compensatory. He is experiencing a lot of changes right now. He is experiencing changes with his diabetes. He also has anxiety attacks that he has managed, but he also is frequently having. And we also thought about the supportive educative side as well.
Yeah, with the supportive educative, I think that he doesn't need so much physical help, but needs more help coping with his anxiety and learning about his diabetes and how to manage that. So I think that also plays into the supportive educative role.
Right, and then he can ask for support from his grandmother and his mother, but at the same time start weaning off that support. And it's important to get grandma involved, kind of let her know to let him take care of himself gradually, and
Right.
encourage him to do tasks on his own without help.
Right. And if he is like lacking a little bit, then he'll definitely fall more into the partly compensatory category where he does need more help with managing. And we would deal with that when if that time comes, but hopefully it won't.
When we think about the tasks that Nate is going to have to perform on a daily basis when he's away at college, he's going to be, dealing with all of these things independently, such as monitoring. Well, it wasn't clear if he has an insulin pump right now, but if he gets one in the future, he's going to really need to closely monitor that, and obviously checking his blood sugar regularly, or getting a device so he could be able to check it on his phone. He's going to have a very consistent diet. And with all of this, kind of create a routine for himself.
He's also going to have to start managing his own medical supplies, and meaning right, like his pump, if he is going to consider that, his diabetes medications, his anxiety medications. He has to make sure he knows how to refill those, how to order those, and how to store them, how to properly piece them apart so that he can recognize what time he has to take which one. Also, planning, he can write down on a desk calendar and his planner when he has to take, what time he has to take his doses, when he has to check his blood sugar, when he has to check in with his nurse, his mom, his case manager, his primary care doctor, just so that he's on top of everything and reduce as much anxiety as possible, because he tends to not perform or not do certain tasks when it causes too much anxiety. So when he can plan ahead, he can do better in general. That also comes with making appointments for himself and establishing a support system outside of his family, maybe on campus. We were discussing maybe looking into different groups or clubs. Maybe there's a diabetic support group and mental health support group that deals with anxiety, or even on social media, finding a Facebook support group for diabetics so that he can ask for support or guidance to other college students that maybe are going through something similar.
And with like a healthy diet, he may have to find a place for like fresh food or healthy alternatives that he can have, or even like a place to cook if he's gonna cook for himself.
Yeah. And additionally, with the calendar, it needs to be a weekly calendar, a monthly calendar, and but not only that, he's gonna need like a daily planner of what, he's gonna need to check his blood sugars in the morning and definitely at night for sure. But by having a planner and checking off, okay, I checked my morning blood or I did my morning blood sugar is gonna be necessary for this patient in the first steps of creating a routine.
He also really needs to worry about monitoring his symptoms. He needs to understand what hyperglycemia looks like and what hypoglycemia looks like. He's also on an SSRI and he's at college and could be drinking, and he needs to know the side effects of SSRIs too and what to expect.
Yeah, and with regard to his own capabilities with regard to health, he's going to have to be self-sufficient with his management of his diabetes, and make progress in managing his anxiety, recognize what triggers it and try to work around any triggers, take the necessary steps to avoid any triggers. I know change brings about triggers his anxiety, so maybe he ease himself into things. Maybe maintain contact with his mother and grandmother for the first couple of weeks as he's starting school, so that they can kind of help him cope with the change. Yeah, establishing good coping mechanisms. Music is healing for him and it's therapeutic, so definitely turn to music when he feels like he's anxious or overwhelmed, overstimulated. And again, balancing his SSRIs, managing that in conjunction with coping mechanisms and steps to prevent and work around triggers.
I think that touched a lot on his health-related demands, talking about his diabetes, his anxiety, having to monitor his diabetes and control his anxiety, and have coping mechanisms, like Chris, you said. And then for his health-related capabilities, I think he's pretty self-sufficient, like taking care of his daily living tasks, like his ability to eat, walk, things like that. I think he has more troubles just being self-sufficient with his healthcare and making appointments, monitoring, getting him supplies, things like that, which I think are going to be the biggest challenges for him, especially going off to college.
Yeah. Another health-related capability he has as well is it's a good thing that his SSRIs are balanced right now, because we know that we have a baseline for that, and whether we need to up those on later on or hopefully wean him off of them as he grows independence and starts to flourish in his own life. So I think, though, it's important to talk about some of the self-care deficits he may have. So he may have frequent panic attacks during changes. he and his grandmother still get easily overwhelmed when there is a lot of change in his life. So he's definitely going to have some kind of mechanism to help him deal with those changes and adapt quickly, and also be able to move on and stay on top of his health while doing so.
With those deficits, I mean, I know that he's also, I'm worried about him not checking his sugar frequently enough. Like I said, I mean, he could become hypoglycemic. I mean, he has a history of going into DKA, so that's kind of a deficit that I'm worried about too. Also, just meeting due dates, taking things on time, like we kind of talked about with the calendar, with the schedule. Even, I mean, hopefully he's going to obviously make appointment with his PCP. So meeting that due date, going to that appointment. With that kind of comes with organization. It's going to be something that is very challenging. It's really hard to stay organized, especially because he is having all these changes right now. So that's why, again, we are suggesting the calendar. He also has a tendency to avoid tasks due to anxiety. So we kind of talked about too, we're worried that not only might he avoid tasks, there's a possibility that he could avoid class if he's anxious or has a panic attack.
Even avoiding like blood sugars would be a big concern for us. So we just have to know as a team that he's going to have to change those avoidance issues and have new habits form for him when he is alone. Next, we can discuss the 3 steps of Orem's nursing process. So for diagnose and prescribe, we just had a couple of questions we still want to ask in depth. One would be, how would going away to college affect his health? It's very scary going away alone, even without health issues. So definitely he needs to ask himself how is he going to deal with his own health on his own.
We also wanted to talk about how his independence and being alone in college will play a factor in his health. Like we were talking about, I mean, like Karina just said, it's really scary to go away to college, for somebody that doesn't struggle with anxiety and diabetes mellitus 1, let alone somebody like him who is struggling with that. He won't have his grandma to rely on anymore. He won't have his mom to rely on anymore. So he's going to have to find his own independence. He's going to have to find friends who will support him.
And also like how his anxiety and avoidance factors, like how severe are they, and how much he thinks like he's going to avoid taking care of his diabetes and things like that, just to kind of figure out like a good plan for him.
Right, and again, it's essential for him to follow the schedule. I mean, not just for a person with anxiety and diabetes. And any new college student has to follow schedule and follow a course schedule, let alone medication schedule. So that's going to be important for him to do well, not only in college, but do well with managing his care with regard to his diabetes and his anxiety. Knowing where his PCP is in relation to where his college is, how he can get there, when he's available, having a supply system for his medical materials so he can know where to obtain them, including during emergencies when he's really low or he's having an anxiety attack. Creating a plan for that, maybe turning to his music, which helps him ease that, and apart from his medications.
And for evaluation, to produce and control, we said that him tracking his SSRI use and his symptoms just to see how much they're still being effective to treat his anxiety, along with keeping a journal or a tracker about how many anxiety attacks he has within like a given period of time, as well as tracking his blood glucose and maybe showing that journal to a nurse or his provider or his mom and grandma just to keep him doing it and accountable.
An example would be if he was to get the pump in his arm, you can easily get the app on multiple devices. So his mom could track his blood sugars while he's at college, and just, kind of just be there in the background while he's maintaining it himself. So this is just an option too as well. And then some methods that we wanted to use as well for helping us understand Nate's care is providing an environment for him that promotes his personal development and meets future demands. So like Chris said earlier, it would be great for him to find a support group such as a Facebook that helps him find other people who also have diabetes or anxiety attacks, where he can go and feel safe and not only feel safe but flourish and become healthier.
We also thought that teaching another was an important method that we read about, because again, this is something new that Nate is experiencing. He needs to be educated and taught about the specifics of diabetes type 1. We also talked about supporting another. Again, like I was saying earlier, it's really important for Nate to find a support system in college. Like Karina and Chris were talking about, this could be a Facebook group, but even maybe a roommate or somebody that is even aware that he has diabetes type 1. In case there's an emergency situation, they know what to do, they know how to treat it, because he is alone at college in this process.
And getting back to the environment thing too, we want to make sure that he has enough insulin on hand for emergencies, but also glucagon too, in case he was, because with type 1 diabetics, they can be very unpredictable. So it's important that he has supplies for hyperglycemia as well as hypoglycemia.
And for how can the community-based nurse case manager facilitate Nate's movement from the stage he currently is in to a supportive education system before entering college? We thought consulting once a week with the community nurse or family support to kind of update them on what's going on with his diabetes and his anxiety. Also, like we said previously, joining a group for others with type 1 diabetes, and also having like a case manager that can provide resources on where to get supplies, and kind of where to reach out if he needs any emergent supplies as well.
And the outcomes that would let Nate and the case manager, us, know that the interventions have been a success is if he can demonstrate that he follows his healthy diet successfully. If he avoids hospitalization because he's being responsible and looking at checking his blood glucose regularly, taking his anxiety meds, attending classes, because I know that causes him stress. Change causes him stress. So if he's able to attend his classes and successfully follow his schedules, that would demonstrate that the interventions have been successful. Following through with journaling, keeping a record of his daily activities, of when he checked his blood glucose, kind of what he's going through on a daily basis. That would aid in his management of his anxiety, continuing with his SSRIs and his coping mechanisms, demonstrating to us that he understands education on diabetes. He can tell us teach us about what it means to understand and to properly care for his diabetes, and demonstrate independence from his grandmother and his mom. I mean, it doesn't mean he can't check in on them, but demonstrating that he's self-reliant and turns to them for help and support, but not so much so where they have to be babysitting him or doing things for him. Just demonstrating that he can do things for himself. And yeah, all of that would be demonstrating that all of the interventions that we've planned out and suggested were a success. And I think that would conclude